Welcome, Michael.
Hey, thanks so much. Good afternoon, good evening.
Well, hello, Michael. It's a pleasure to have you here with us in our guild. It's so amazing. Thank you very much to be here.
Absolute pleasure. Always great chatting with you guys.
And I'm inviting Sylvia too.
Okay.
Just waiting her. But let's and Santi too. Both of them are coming.
Hola,
Hi, Santi, hola, ¿qué tal?
¿cómo están?
Olá, Santi.
Oi, Brasil.
Olá, Silvia.
Hola,
Boa noite.
Sylvia.
Boa noite, pessoal.
Como está?
We arranged to broadcast these two in Twitch and in YouTube. And in Twitch, you're gonna have a translation. So I think we can speak only in English. And after we do the translations, I think it's easier to get all the questions and all these things.
Yeah, easier for Michael as well.
Much easier for me. I appreciate it, guys.
So Michael, first of all, like, you know, for me, that's one of the founders of Brazilian Startups Alliance, it's amazing to see what's happening in the community and how many people like look into the white paper, to tokenomics, and all the sheeps, and it's madness. It's amazing. Like, in my point of view, I see people asking questions for me so much further than the tokenomics and the white paper. So my first question is that, like, how is to be like a CEO of that dream, and how crazy and how amazing all of this is happening for you? Can you explain for us, or try to explain?
Man, what a good question. And I appreciate the positive feedback. And yeah, it's just extremely rewarding for us, you know, to have really laid out this vision. And it really wasn't that long ago, right? I mean, you guys have heard me talk on interviews about early conceptualization of mid-June. And a lot of that was the groundwork that Danny and Jacob and I laid, you know, for what the product would ultimately become. And then you know, developing out the initial phase of the game economics and the token economics. And, you know, obviously Pablo joined towards the tail end of 2020, and then we made our formal debut. But it's so amazing to think about just how much progress we've made over 11 months, really 10 months, right, of actual being in the public eye of this product. And it's not only inspiring from our standpoint to see this progress, to see this growth, both externally and within the team. I know I mentioned on the last town hall that we, over the previous 2 weeks, as of last Friday, we had recruited 17 new people to the team. And I've mentioned, you know, in several town halls back, that our objective is to grow this team to 500 people by, you know, call it October of 2022. And we are well on track for that now. We have a great new head of HR in Kelsey Thompson. We've also recruited in our well, we've hired for our recruiting pipeline. And we've got a great channel now and pipeline of new recruits and new hirees. And I've operated companies in the past, but nothing that has ever been as successful as this, or has grown as rapidly as this, and has seen so much passion, enthusiasm, and interest from, you know, from the audience, the global audience that is, you know, looking at the metaverse. So I would say it's just very inspiring, very encouraging. It's hard sometimes because we're so focused on growth, and there's, you know, and on development and on delivery. You know, there's a lot of demands out there, a lot of people that are very anxious to get in and start playing and start earning and, you know, see the vision come to life. And so a lot of times we're just heads down, and we don't really necessarily take the step back to think about just how far we've come in such a short period of time. And your question just kind of made me do that. So I appreciate the question just for what it was. But it's really inspiring. And then the final point I would make is it's already excelled beyond the point where everything is kind of being produced by us. We're seeing a lot of amazing content get published, and resources and features and education, information. We're seeing a lot of this already get produced by the community, and this is what we're building for. This is the world that we're building for, where everybody can contribute in some way. So very inspired and just kind of grateful to be here with so many amazing people like Sylvia, like Santi, that are here on the channel with us. But amazing people across the company, and the community has been really supportive all along.
No, they are amazing, Wagner. Since the first time I sent a message to Santi, like I was nobody, I didn't have a guild, I didn't found nothing. I'm just one of 14,000 people. And I sent a message to him, "Hi Santi, I'm pretending to make a Brazilian guild, and how supported he is since the day one." And Sylvia can even express how much is good for Brazilians to have her in your team, because she shows passion for our country, and this is amazing. So first of all, congratulations for your team. It's very nice to be with them.
Thank you. And quite obviously, we could not be here today without great people on our team like Sylvia, like Santi, and so many other fantastic hires we've made over the course of the year. To be working with a team of probably 180 people. I think we brought on another 4 or 5 just in the last week. So I'm going to say we're around 180 people right now. But just to see this all come to fruition is really validating, right? From a founder's standpoint of, we ideas are kind of easy and cheap. Executing on ideas is hard, but seeing the passion out there and the interest out there is very motivating for us, just to continue putting in all those extra hours to deliver on what we've what we've presented to the world.
I want to debate with you, discuss with you the already value of this game, because I really accept, I really understand when you say that the game already begun. Because like you said, we saw so much content, so much things doing by other guilds and our guild, everybody working for love, everybody looking for a dream. Most of people think, okay, I'm working now, and in the future I'm going to have a better place in this metaverse, of course. But first of all, when you do a community like this, with so much people engaged for so much different countries, in my point of view, doesn't matter if the game is we have to wait 1 month more or not. This is not the point. The point is seeing the engagement of all the world in the same dream of metaverse. I think this is the biggest value of Star Atlas. And since the day when I entered in the Townhall and saying like what you're talking every week, different people asking different questions, nobody controlling the questions, like you pass a lot of credibility in my point of view. So and parting that point, can you expect the DAO and the staking of the chips, the score in this year, in December?
It's I would defer back to the target dates on the roadmap. I mean, it's certainly my objective and something I've been pushing very hard within the team to deliver before the end of the year. It's I'll just kind of reiterate, of the kind of areas that we're focusing on right now, it's making sure that we get score out so we can provide that utility for the NFTs that everybody's been purchasing now for the last 2 months. Provide the earning opportunity. We've rolled over the markets now, so you can reinvest some of the Atlas that you're earning right back into purchasing more ships. This is, to me, what I think most people are going to be doing. Rather than trying to cash out today, it's taking those earnings, building a bigger fleet of ships, using it to purchase land when that comes along in the future, and continuing to build your asset base, which then creates the opportunity for passive and residual income for you in the future. The other major feature we want to release is at least Polis staking. Now, the full DAO, the full governance structure, that is not going to be ready by December. I can assure you of that. We're working hard on it, but there's a lot of complexity that goes in, not only to the smart contracts that we need to write for it, but also the framework and the tool set that we're building for teams like you, for guilds like BSA, where we want to provide you a tool set that allows you to manage your guild, manage your treasury, also have the potential to raise capital, and then connect you to other resources that are valuable for you from a leadership standpoint. We want to empower you to have all of the tools that you need to be able to operate successfully across Star Atlas. And then there's the whole legal component of how do we properly structure this? How do we transfer assets over that structure and separate the team behind Star Atlas from the actual DAO? Because it is intended to be an independent entity and structure that is truly managed and governed by the people, right? So there's a lot that goes into all of that, and we're executing on as quickly as possible. But in the short term, what we at least want to be able to do is provide some additional utility for Polis. So what that means is being able to stake Polis, earn Polis. There will be probably a next phase where it's a basic proposal and voting mechanism, but still not the full implementation of the DAO with all of the features that I just described. And I would probably emphasize here, we as a team do still have majority control of Polis tokens that are technically in circulation. Our tokens are locked for vesting, but they're unlocked for voting. And this is really critical for us. This is not to put the community at disadvantage, but it's to ensure that we can continue to build and deliver on the vision that we've already outlined without having too much external influence in the short term. So the real objective of us as a team is to provide that flexibility and autonomy to the community in 3 to 5 years. And so that's kind of our target date of when more decision making can be impacted by the DAO itself.
That does make total sense, because you have to have a guidance and a leadership in the beginning to, like, we had a gods to make the universe, that's our universe, not like a democracy to build our universe. So it's totally normal. And I know the point that other thing that I see a lot of value in Star Atlas is that your team, you and your team, listen the community already. We don't need a DAO to express our voice to the team. This is a thing that I'm saying all of that to you, Wagner, because in my point of view, in my shoes, in Brazilian shoes, I congregate a lot of investors and people that believes in me more than in the game. And this is the things that I talk with them. Like, it's much more than just investment in NFT or in one game. We are investing in our community, in a very special community, because of course you have the time, like Meta in the Facebook and everything going to the metaverse, everybody believing or not, but being the metaverse that we can explore the galaxy and we have all this storytelling with different nations and guilds, and it's amazing. Like, for me, it's no brainer. Like how much you're gonna go further in this dream.
I love it, man. And I mean, first of all, to clarify, we certainly don't think of ourselves as gods, right? I mean, we are creators, but we have deep responsibility now to deliver, and that's it. It creates a lot of pressure, a lot of demand, a lot of stress, but we love what we're doing. We're passionate about what we're doing. I don't mind spending 18 hours a day working on Star Atlas because I enjoy it, and I love seeing the impact that we're making, even with these small steps that we're taking today. So that feels really good. And you're absolutely right. I mean, we've always had an open community where you could contribute feedback, and clearly we've taken action to respond to any concerns that have existed out there. So to your exact point, it's functionally a DAO today. It's just not formally structured. And at some point we'll get to that formal structure where it's all kind of well documented and enforceable.
One thing that I want to talk to you, ask for you, it's about Polis. Because in my perspective, I think Polis is much better than Atlas. Because in Polis, you're going to have like the direct to intervene in the game along the time. And you have to have Polis to have your DAC, no?
You will be able to, so one, I don't want to get accused of pumping any one of the coins whatsoever. We were very strategic in how we created the underlying tokenomics of each so that they derive independent utility. Clearly, to operate within the game, owning Atlas is a requirement. To participate in governance, you need to own Polis. The kind of financial mechanic, though, that really separates and defines Polis is the ability to capture in a passive form a portion of all of the revenues off of the metaverse itself. It's well outlined in the white paper, but effectively, we've talked a lot about how every operation activity in the game is associated with some form of operating cost. If you're flying a ship, you have to repair it, you have to refuel it, you have to feed the crew members that are on that ship, you have to use Atlas to upgrade items over time, replace modules. All of these expenses that exist within the metaverse, they don't get destroyed. Now, in a traditional game, if you paid an NPC, a non-playable character, to buy a potion or a consumable or something, or buy a sword off of the marketplace, that currency gets destroyed. That is the only mechanism that a traditional game has to combat hyperinflation. And there are a lot of great videos out there, by the way, that I would encourage people to look at that speak to hyperinflation in game economies. Now, we are operating under a completely different model because it is finite supply of assets from the start, regardless of how many players join. So we won't be exposed to this issue of hyperinflation, which means we don't have to necessarily worry about, say, burning expenses in game to combat it. Instead, all of that revenue, which is, you could kind of think of it as a universal tax on the GDP of the economy within the metaverse, all of that actually flows directly into the DAO. And then at some point, that Atlas gets distributed. Any of a number of things can happen. One, it could be distributed out. Two, it could be used to pay Star Atlas team to build out a specific feature. Or it could be used to hire another team that will build a specific feature for delivery if that's what the DAO wants to see built. Those tokens could be burned, or they could also be reinvested back into the economy. I've often mentioned, like, the last point sounds a little counterintuitive to many people. Like, why would you give away tokens when you could take those essentially as revenue? But the objective here for Polis holders is to grow the user base as large as possible and create the most robust economy inside the metaverse. Because capturing a percentage of a much larger GDP in the long term is far more beneficial for those passive income holders of Polis, right? So those are kind of the core differentiators, but also having the ability to influence what the metaverse becomes in the future adds a lot of value to Polis. So it's more of a long-term play. Arguably, it's undervalued right now. I mean, it's hard to say what the value of either of these tokens should be. Right? We can't really use any traditional models, although earnings on Polis, you could kind of apply some financial modeling to determine a net present value or an intrinsic value of what Atlas is. And likewise, in the future, you will be able to use these same financial models to determine what Polis is worth in a very realistic fashion. But for now, we're all kind of still in the early building phase, and so it's hard to determine what each is truly worth.
Oh, for sure. Of course, both are going to be important, but I would prefer to have my kind of votations in the future. One thing that everybody asks for sure is about you said in other interviews that we can expect something between 5 to 15% for in the score to the ships. Can you confirm this?
It's what I'll say is that we're targeting a favorable, income level for everybody based on whatever economic value of the assets they're holding is. It should be pretty competitive and pretty attractive to people. I don't want to pigeonhole us into a specific number, because the reality is there's a lot of variables that will determine what every individual player makes. It could be higher, to be honest with you. We're kind of basing our model on, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but we're basing our model on if every ship that we've listed and released to date was sold at the prices that we listed them at. Now, that's not the reality, right? So it actually means that yield should be better for the people that own ships today. But we want to ensure that we're not overinflating the economy in the short term. And that also means that we need to be able to account for every single dollar that can possibly exist if all of the ships were to sell out. So we're basing our model on maximum economic value being staked to or enlisted in score, which we also know is not true, because we know that not everyone is going to take their ship and constantly maintain it and stake it to score. So all of that said, we're kind of basing the target rate on all of those worst case variables, but understanding that in most cases, we won't be reaching those maximums, and so therefore the individual user yield should actually be better, right? But this is why I don't want to put us in any type of scenario where anybody can come back and say, well, you promised us this number and it's not, because there are cases where it could be lower as well. So I hope that helps, though.
Of course, but at least can you express to us, like, is the yield going to be proportional to the value of the first enlistment? Like, if I buy a X4 for $20, it will be $20. If I buy a capital ship for $28, $90, $100, it will be in this price. But it will be the same yields, or in special ships, you're going to be different yields. The thinking about the distribution. Sure.
Yeah. So the early version of this is pretty simplistic, which is actually beneficial to users as well. It's essentially equivalent or proportional across every single asset. It's like everything can kind of earn the same rate is the idea. It doesn't matter if you have an R8 or an X4, right? To your point, it's not based on the price that you paid, though. It's based on the what we call volume weighted average price of all of the ships, assuming that all of the ships sold. And you can compute that volume weighted average price by looking at the quantity available in each one of the waves, multiplied by the price in that wave, and then divided by its total share out of all of the waves that would encompass a sale of any individual ship. I don't know if that explains it well. VWAP is what is called volume weighted average price, but essentially it's an average of all waves at all prices based on how many items were in each wave.
I perfectly understood. Thank you. And can I send you it's not a tip, but something like, why don't you give a little bit more for the first ones? Like, for me, I have all kinds of ships, but imagine a Brazilian that don't have money and put a lot of money from him and bought a X5, X4 for $20, He receiving a little bit more, I would appreciate that. Understand what I'm trying to say?
Well, I mean, I think the argument could be made either way, right? If rates are better on smaller ships, then the people with the bigger ships are going to say, why are they getting an advantage? And vice versa, people that have the smaller ships at bigger ships are getting a better rate, then they would question why that is. So for now, we just want it to be equivalent. Doesn't matter which type of asset you own. This will get a lot more complex in the future. Things like ship configuration, first of all, so how you spec out your ship, and then also how you configure your fleet. What combination of ships in your fleet? These are all going to add to the complexity of the model and will determine, kind of rates of return in the future, which adds far more control to the player and decision making and strategy to the player on how best to execute and operate across the metaverse. Two other points of clarification, though. The yields now are very likely to be better than they will be in the future because it's a smaller user base. We still have, a certain emission rate that is specified in the white paper, or in the game economic paper rather. And so fewer people right now are competing for all of those resources. So yields today are probably better than they'll be in the future, at least in Atlas terms. Where that changes again, and something that we have no control over, is as the price of Atlas goes up, we will be making some adjustments to emission schedule. Well, trying to think of how to term it. We'll be making some adjustments to the amount of Atlas that gets distributed over a fixed period of time to reflect those changes in exchange rate. But that also means that we have some levers that we can pull on our side where there can be some kind of split. So from a dollar perspective, it's possible that in the future, if the price of Atlas goes up, your yield actually goes up. But if we're just looking at nominal terms of Atlas being distributed, right now is going to be one of the most favorable times to be involved because there's less users. And then the second thing that I would
It's like
clarification.
Bitcoin. Imagine in the beginning with a normal computer, you could mine 50 Bitcoins. It's the same in the beginning. Atlas, maybe you mine more and receive more, and the price goes up with the time. Like
That's right. And I don't want to, definitely not financial advice. I don't want to tell anybody what to do. We have no idea what's going to happen to the price of Atlas, but exactly, right? So if you're earning Atlas today, obviously if the price of Atlas goes up, then that rate of return that you are receiving today is going to be dramatically higher in the future. Now, if it goes down, which is always possible, then your rate of return would be lower, assuming you held those same Atlas. So it's up to every individual to decide if they want to hold Atlas, if they want to put it back into game assets, or if they just want to liquidate it into some national domestic currency or some other cryptocurrency. All of those are options for the players, and kind of do what you will with that information, I suppose.
of course, but I would say that a lot of people we're gonna save Atlas to buy better ships. A lot of people are gonna dream with a bigger ship and work hard to have this bigger ship. So
yeah. Once again, we anticipate the same thing. I think not financial advice, but I think that that's a smart way of engaging in the game if you intend to play for a while. You're going to have a bigger asset base to earn from if you take that approach.
Of course, if you believe in the metaverse, if you believe that it's a place you can explore the universe with a lot of crazy people, it's going to value more in the future. Buy ships, it's easy. I believe. One thing a lot of people are questioning, it's about when you finish this Galacticity offering, it's written that it's 3 months of offering, I would say, in the beginning. After that period, you're going to burn the remaining ships that's not sailing, not sold?
No, and we probably need to go do some housekeeping on, if you're looking at like the original white paper and the roadmap that we had and how it's, what it described as being the GAL back then, a lot of that has changed and evolved pretty dramatically. So at some point we need to get back into that white paper and kind of update it. The game economic paper right now is still very relevant and current. So that's kind of the best place to look for things like economics. What we committed to, though, is that we very, very likely will not ever sell any of these same ships ever again. And so instead of us burning any ships, they will continue to exist on the market. We do want people to be able to get access to these new players, right? We're building for the billion-person user base, not the hundreds of thousands or the millions. So over time, more people are going to come in. We want them to have access to these same assets if they're still available. That's fair, and it also allows for the community to continue growing. If we were just to destroy all of those at the end, then how would people get in? And then it creates bidding wars, and then it creates increases in barriers to entry, so people can't afford the assets anymore, and then we lose users because of that, right? So we don't want to create that scenario. So essentially, we won't be creating any more or reissuing any of the same assets that we've placed on the market, but the ones that we did place on the market will continue to live there until they get purchased. And then the only way those ships ever get produced in the future is when people, participate in the mining process, extracting ore, processing those into, refined materials, and then creating and minting their own NFTs out of it, which should be a very, very fun gameplay loop, by the way. It's a crafting gameplay loop, but I think it's super cool that people would be able to mint their own NFTs of these ships in the future that otherwise don't exist anymore. And then one final point on that is, keep in mind when we roll out deep space with high risk zone where it's permadeath or hardcore mode, ships will be destroyed over time, which actually means that there's going to be reduced supply inherently as people are active out in operating out in that high risk zone. So there's going to be like a high degree of variability of ships that actually exist in the future when we get all of the mechanics out.
Like how long for us to be possible to go in the deep space? Like 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? Not a date, but like it's not like a declaration, but in your mind, or how long for it to be possible for us to go to the deep space in playing there?
So I think that there's different ways that we can implement it. First of all, is what I would say. From the standpoint of the Unreal Engine version of this game, it's probably 4 to 5 years away. That's going to be one of the the later features that we develop out in Unreal Engine. That's not to say that we can't create some version of high risk deep space in the minigame, right, in browser. It's possible. It's not scoped out. I don't know if we'll even do that, but it's possible that we can kind of introduce that dynamic, especially if there's substantial demand for these types of gameplay. Another way that we could kind of implement that, by the way, is creating like battle arenas where maybe your ship has a certain amount of lives and you can participate in those battle arenas, and it's still high stakes with money on the table. That would also lead to that same ship deflation outcome, should people lose too many battles. So that's just an idea. I'm literally thinking out loud with you, but things like this are all possible.
And it's very interesting because one of the questions was like, hi Daniel, how can we train to be a good pilot, to be a good fighter? It's going to be a place like for us to train fighting, something like you said, a battle place, but with lives. Very, very, very interesting. Very nice.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll put more thought into it before we roll anything out. But that's there's many different ways that we can implement that, especially if there's high demand for PvP. And it could also, I'll just thinking out loud again, just one additional thing is it could just be we'll have to think about legality of this and regulation of this, but it could be battle arenas where you're kind of placing bets and it creates a purse, and then the winner of the battle arena gets to collect the purse. It could also be done so through like tournaments where there's a fee to buy into the tournament, and whoever wins at the end or the top 3 get to collect the purse. So there's a lot of ways we can introduce PvP mechanics without having to go into the deep space exploration and super high risk zone in Unreal Engine.
It's amazing how much possibilities is possible in a universe like that. One thing, another thing that people were asking, like 1 minute. A lot of people is asking too, if how it's gonna be the mini game. We're gonna like drive a ship, or it's possible to play in the first person too. You be just a pilot of ships.
Well, so there's a full roadmap behind the mini game, and I want to make sure we clarify that score is not the complete mini game. That's just the first gameplay loop in the mini game. The roadmap is essentially to create the score system, which is more ship enlistment and resource management. Then we want to focus on land and land production, so extracting ore. That enables us to create the whole crafting gameplay loop wherein people can start minting their own NFTs. This will be closely coupled with orbital space stations. These orbital space stations are really complementary assets to your land assets. They work in tandem. And then from there, we want to make sure that we roll out the sorry guys if you're hearing my cat back there. She's perfectly fine. She just gets jealous when I'm on calls all day. But then we get into the three-dimensional map of the universe with coordinates. So the star atlas with geographic coordinates. And then we kind of go back and we start updating each of those. So we update score to more in-depth ship missions where they're still pseudo-blind. You're not necessarily driving or piloting your ship, but there's more decision-making and more mission-oriented activities that you can participate in. At some point in the browser, you will be able to pilot your ship. That's the idea right now, always subject to change. But the idea is that you will be able to pilot your ship in the browser at some point in the future. But then we just keep going through that cycle and updating features as we go. And I think, fortunately, the progress on this will start moving faster and faster as we get a bigger and bigger team.
Perfect. Can you explain a little bit of what's going to be the showroom that you're talking about in other town halls and it's in the roadmap too?
Yeah, the showroom should be super cool. It's our initial module in Unreal Engine. So this is where you'll actually have to go out and download a game client, and you'll log into the game client, which will connect. It's still going to be fully decentralized in Web3. So you'll connect your wallet through that process, and then you load into the fully immersive world that is Star Atlas. It's limited on kind of like gameplay mechanics. The idea is to introduce you to the world. It's in many ways kind of like almost like a car dealership. I don't want to diminish what it is because it's beautiful. I've seen a lot of the demos already, but the general idea is that you'll first of all, it's kind of a social place, so multiple players will be able to log in and interact with one another there, socialize there. You'll be able to configure your ships.
A lot of people ask about that, Michael. To interact in showroom, this will be amazing.
Yeah, it could be your hangout zone, right? So I still need to connect with Danny on the first version might not include multiplayer support. We have to figure out like how many concurrent users we can have and what the networking layer looks like there. But it is an area that we want to deliver on because part of the metaverse is social interaction, right? We know that. So kind of multiplayer support is coming. It's going to be a component of showroom. But to me, there's going to be some like mini games even in the showroom as well. Again, maybe not on the initial rollout, but over time, there will be these little experiences that you can participate in strictly inside the showroom. But one of the coolest things is just being able to see ships at scale. So you'll be able to go through the full gamut of any of the release ships that we have full production models on, and creating these full production, high resolution, beautiful ships, by the way, does take quite a while. I mean, you guys saw, I think, the Compact Hero image that we shared. We literally are engineering these ships from the inside out. So we have to think about things like flow and space and rooms and how that fits in the shell of the ship. Right now you're seeing the exterior, but we have to build the entire interior as well. And it all has to be modeled to the highest quality. So, but these ships you'll be able to kind of load them in and see them side by side. So to me, that's one of the coolest things. Going from the extra small ship all the way up to a Titan ship, you can really get a sense of just how big these assets are when you're going to be flying them around in space.
How big is going to be a Titan? People are saying that it's biggest than a lot of countries.
Not as big as countries. It's 7 kilometers. So that's a big ship, right? It's maybe as big as some cities. And, once again, think about how much work is going to need to go into modeling any of these Titans. An interior that is as big as a city. We essentially have to design an entire city inside of a ship in Unreal Engine. So there's a lot that goes into that. But that's 7 kilometers is a massive ship, and it's probably one of the largest ships in any video game, I think.
One question that I'm gonna, not a question, but like I want to debate with you and ask for you. And how can we put a little more Brazilians and people from development countries in a game like Star Atlas? Because I see a lot of power in the community, community as a service. I saw so much people interacting with Solana for the first time, downloading Phantom, and interacting with all the Solana ecosystem because of Star Atlas. Don't you think it's possible for you to bring some embassies, Star Atlas embassies, in countries like Brazil and other big countries in development like Indonesia, Philippines, and others?
100%. And whether we do that physically, which is possible, where we establish offices kind of around the world, that's a lot of infrastructure for us to manage. Not impossible, but I'm not certain we'll do that. But where we are looking at creating the ambassador program is at least electronically, through remote work and finding brand ambassadors who want to support us and then also extending that into areas like a DAC relations, head of DAC relations. So somebody that can communicate, work with guilds, and maybe beneath that we have a hierarchy of or another layer where it's regional focused. So there's different DAC managers on our team that you can report directly to, and that information all funnels back up to us, right? So that we can at least consume, absorb, hear all of the feedback in a highly concentrated and distilled format. So these are things that we want to bring. This is where we're deploying money. This is part of where we're hiring across our team to introduce these types of global ambassadors and representatives that will communicate on your behalf back up to us.
This is very nice because I see a lot of passion in our community. You know, for me, I'm a crypto investor for a long time. It's like I already made my financial life, not a big life, but a good life. So I don't have any deals, but I see so much people that dream to have a ship for $100 X5 or dream to have $1,000 chips. You know, I would say if we can put these people to dream, to work with this with love, and return that the possibility to buy a better ship, a better thing, you'd be amazing, man. You'd be very nice.
So one additional component that I think will help. One is kind of the community and communications and distribution of information, but the other thing are those financial tools and services that we can make available. That I've talked a lot about composability across Solana and how all of the innovation that's going on across the Solana ecosystem directly benefits Star Atlas. I fully appreciate your comment. I do think we've brought massive amount of users over to Solana, and we will continue to do so. Gaming is going to be this mass migration of non-crypto people into crypto because they see the potential and it's a product that they're actually interested in engaging in. But things like lending, things like, we're not going to call it a scholarship, but similar programs to the way scholarships work. And then also this concept of kind of almost like an uncollateralized loan that can go out to purchase an item. Now, on this last point, I'm still a little bit conflicted, but you know how if you want to buy a car, most people don't have all the money they need to buy a car. I'm not sure how this is in Brazil, by the way, so I might be misspeaking, but in the US, you take a loan, right? You take a loan and you buy your car and you pay it off over time. Now, in Star Atlas, we could implement the same thing where if you have no money, you can borrow $100, you can buy one of your ships, and you can start playing, and you pay that ship off over time. Now, the reason I'm conflicted is I don't necessarily want to create an economy where everybody is indebted immediately upon entering, but at the same time, I see that as being a huge opportunity for people who may not otherwise have access to the capital or the asset base necessary, and it creates an opportunity for them to at least earn, pay that ship off, and then start building wealth from there.
I'm going to say the scholarship is the easiest way. Like, other thing that I really believe that your team heard us is like, I bought a lot of ships, more than 700 ships, not for me, but to have a community doing scholarship with Star Atlas. And one point when I start to see that, okay, it's going to be impossible to land now, I'm fucked because I can't use 700 ships. And when you said no, the first phase is going to be staking because we are not ready for everything. I saw a lot of value, as an investor, and as a person that you are looking at us too, doing the best for us. But the final question is, when the real game starts, it's going to be possible to have scholarships, landing, and all this kind of thing you said?
Yeah, I sure hope so. I mean, I've mentioned Jet Protocol before. There's many, by the way, that are building these lending kind of tools. We happen to be working close with Jet. Someone else might come along before that kind of builds out the features that we need sooner, or there might be a better feature. We're not exclusive to anyone. We don't have any exclusive relationship in place with these third-party financial service providers. But what we do care about is getting the tools out to you. And so the lending tools are very much one and the same as a scholarship program. As long as you can let someone else utilize your asset in a trustless, decentralized format, then you have the ability to empower your community. And so it's something we're already working on and want to get integrated soon. I would expect it's out well before any of the core gameplay is released.
Like I said, when I bought these ships, it's to give opportunities to more people, no? Because I saw it like it would be amazing to be there. Like, why can I invest a little bit and helps people to be there? And I think a lot of people in different countries thought the same, because just the beginning you said that's going to happen some way, and this is important not only for Staratas but for Solana ecosystem. Like I said in the beginning, you're in the edge of the Solana, the necessities of the player, the Solana. And I said to you, a lot of people tried for the first time Solana, and it's true too that a lot of people tried FTX for the first time because it's Staratas. In Brazil, Binance is very popular, and before Staratas, a lot of people didn't even know what FTX was. And I saw a lot of people entering FTX too because of Staratas. At the end, all this kind of technology is a must for Solana, not even just for Staratas,
Yes. And if I can, just quickly here, Daniel, I want to make sure I mention we do have eyes and ears in the community. I do not beat my cats ever, and especially not on calls, but I believe there was a comment out there to that effect. So I just want to clarify, my cats are perfectly fine. They're just they're just cranky.
Sylvia, I made a lot of questions, but I didn't did all the questions. Do you think has another important questions to ask Michael?
You can go ahead. We still have 10 minutes to go if you want to do anything else. That would be great.
Let me see some from the public that I didn't do.
The people I'm seeing in Twitch and I'm seeing in the channels, and the community is asking a lot of things apart from the cats as well.
A lot of people is asking, Michael, if you are a person like me, you do just one guild, a big guild, a mood guild, or you're gonna do 3 guilds like Aesha and other guilds are doing?
That's really hard to say. I can kind of see advantages to the diversified guild structure. I think the core downside to that type of architecture is not being able to actively play with all of your guild members all the time, because there is there are the geographic regions of the factions that you'll be operating in mostly. Now there are probably economic benefits to operating across all 3, but again, some kind of social gaming disadvantages to operating in that format. So I think you just have to decide. Do you want to be flying around with all your friends, or are you most concerned about extracting the maximum economic value out of the game?
It's going to be possible to interact with the other factions just in the safe zone, or are going to have to pass through the deep zone to talk with them?
They will probably be isolated. I most likely not going to be able to traverse into other faction safe zones without passing through all of the space in between. So going between deep space, medium risk, and then into the safe zone. That's more of a question for Danny, to be honest with you. I'm not sure how that will resolve in the end, but that's my current understanding is that they are completely separated.
Yeah, I would say it makes sense. Another question, like we're going to be a Brazilian guild, a lot of Brazilians. When everybody choose the guild, we're going to live close by in our safe zone?
Everybody will start in the safe zone. And then
going to be neighbors, like all BSAs are going to be neighbors, or are going to be spread between the moods zone?
Well, everybody most likely is going to start in the same location in the safe zone the first time they load into the game. After that, though, once you start traveling around, and this is kind of to be worked out too, but you're probably going to park your ship on a space station somewhere, on a planet somewhere, in somebody's hangar bay or in your own hangar bay, and kind of log out of the game. And once you log out, when you log back in, you'll be in that same spot. The other part of this would be buying land. If you guys all want to operate in the same area, which would probably make a lot of sense, then you'll want to purchase land all together, right? In some area of space, and then that becomes your domain that you guys master.
You're going to be auctioned for lands?
We don't know yet, to be honest with you. We're still debating on that. I know a lot of people were concerned about the auction process, which was why we're reflecting on it. We do want to make sure that land distribution is fair. I would also say that the very similar to how we have extra small ships with a lot of with very high quantity. A lot of that, like 50% of that supply, is still available on the market. We'll probably have a pretty large amount of at least tier 1 land claims that everybody can get access to. Once again, we want everybody around the world, regardless of economic situation, to be able to participate in Star Atlas on all fronts, not just piloting a ship, but also owning land and participating in that production cycle. So
you have to be inclusive, otherwise you're gonna have 1 billion people there. No, a lot of people don't have too much money, so it's important to have an open door.
Absolutely, and I would also point out that this universe is going to evolve and expand over time. The size of the universe is kind of dependent upon the number of users across it. So this is a complex formula to create from the economic team, because we want to make sure that we're not overinflating, diminishing the value of the existing assets. But to your point, we don't want to be too restrictive, which benefits the existing, that exclusively benefits all of the existing players. Because of course, if there's too little supply, then anybody who owns land initially is going to see a massive rise based on the increase in demand. So we need to balance out the release of new land, kind of the discovery of new regions of space over time as the player base grows, and balance that so that it is inclusive. There is options for all of these new players, and that we don't damage the existing value of every asset that exists across the universe.
One final question. We have this 5 minutes. When you are first drafting this game, this metaverse, this dream, did you thought about all the importance of the guilds, or asking better, when you start doing that, would you say that before the game even begins, you're gonna have so much guilds from all over the world with thousands and thousands of people? Do you think that you're gonna have so much community at this moment?
I will openly admit I never anticipated that we would see this much and this level of guild formation at this early stage. Never in my wildest dreams did I think we would see this. And a lot of credit I think should go to Christian with Interstellar Alliance. I mean, this was back in January.
He's a monster.
What's that?
No, he's a monster. Like he's inside Star Atlas already. He loves this. It's amazing to look what all he's doing.
Yeah, and it was his request, to set up the guild recruiting channel, and he published the Interstellar Alliance at the beginning, and that was kind of one of the first times, and it was early on. Like I said, it was either January or February, and that was the first time that we started to sit down and think like, okay, the guild dynamic here is probably going to be more powerful than we ever thought it would be. So amazing to see it though come to fruition and to have evolved the way that it has so early.
I would say this is the thing that what I truly believe, that Star Atlas is here to stay. Because Michael, a lot of people say, no, remember cypherpunks, remember Star Citizen, blah 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 blah, and I always say to him, okay, do you have a community like this a lot of people working for love all over the world, connecting and dreaming in other games. It's not the same. It's not the same.
Definitely, and another point on that is like we have to keep in mind that Star Atlas as a product is something that will constantly evolve, and through that decentralization process. At some point in the future, the DAO is probably going to be making so much money that it needs to decide how to invest that money. And it will invest in teams, not Star Atlas. It will invest in other development teams that meet the standards that we introduce to create content and build on top of Star Atlas. And now you have people all over the world constantly expanding what Star Atlas actually means and is, right? And it's new experiences, it's new features, it's new gameplay, it's new everything that people can participate in. So, that's the big vision. That's the big picture, is where everyone can contribute and kind of has a responsibility to. And the funding for all of that just comes from the metaverse itself, which we don't control, right? The funding or that capital all comes from all of the economic activity that exists across the metaverse, flows into the DAO. And then the DAO can decide, we want these new features. We want this team to build this thing, or some radical revolution of whatever, or evolution of what Star Atlas is. And that has never existed before.
Man, I want to congratulate you a lot. I see you as a leader. It's amazing to be part of Star Atlas. I want to ask if you're going to say something to the Brazilian community that I didn't ask. I want to thanks a lot, Silvia and Santi, for all they're doing for us. So, say your farewell and thank you very much, my friend.
No, I think it's great. Santi, Silvia, anything else that you think we should cover right now while we're here?
I know Santi what's going to say, so I'm going to leave it to Santi to say it. And other than that, Brazilian community, eu adoro vocês, eu me sinto brasileira e eu estou aqui para qualquer coisa que vocês precisem.
I would like to thank everybody for being here with us, listening to us. While we know that Argentina is playing against Brazil, we know that everybody will love to see it. So we really appreciate listening to us today. To Michael,
everybody throw tomatoes at Santi.
So thank you very much. And next time I'm going to come here with a caipirinha. Cachaça.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, sincerely appreciate the opportunity. To the Brazilian community, we sincerely appreciate all the support. I love seeing it grow. I think you're still the fastest growing community across Star Atlas right now. It's absolutely incredible. So appreciate the opportunity to be up here, and it's always great chatting with you all.
Thank you very much, all of you. Obrigado aí todo mundo que veio. Tentei fazer o máximo de pergunta diferente. E adorei. Obrigadão, Malves e Dux aí por proporcionar.
Tamo junto.
Tamo junto.
Power to the people.
Yeah, stick it to the man.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.